Breaking news out of Nova Scotia. The RCMP have just confirmed that cadaver dogs will be deployed in the search for 6-year-old Lilly Sullivan and her 4-year-old brother, Jack. These are not ordinary search dogs. They are trained exclusively to detect the scent of human remains. And that announcement changes everything. For more than 4 months, police insisted they had no reason to believe the children were dead. Yet now, with cadaver dogs flying in from across the country, the question can no longer be avoided. Do investigators secretly suspect the worst? Are they preparing the public for the possibility that Lilly and Jack are no longer alive, perhaps hidden, buried, or concealed somewhere in the forests and fields of Nova Scotia? Tonight, we break down what this sudden shift means, why it matters, and whether the deployment of cadaver dogs signals a turning point in one of Canada's most haunting missing children cases. The announcement shook the investigation to its core. For months, Nova Scotians have watched as helicopters, drones, ground crews, and police dogs combed the woods of Pictou County. And yet, until now, one critical resource was missing: cadaver dogs. Unlike standard search and rescue animals, these highly specialized dogs are trained to identify only one thing: the unique and unmistakable scent of human decomposition. Staff Sergeant Stephen Pike, who oversees the RCMP's Police Dog Services Training Center, describes them as highly specialized, highly trained, and capable of finding human remains even when they are hidden beneath soil, underwater, or sealed away in challenging environments like septic fields and landfills. Think about what that means. These animals do not search for the lost, or the wandering, or the missing. They are brought in only when there is reason to believe that death has occurred. Their noses do not seek out hope. They seek out tragedy. And yet, the RCMP insist they have no definitive evidence that Lilly and Jack are dead. Corporal Guillaume Tremblay addressed reporters directly. What's important to remember is that at this time, we don't have any definitive information to support that the children are deceased. But we have to keep our minds open and look at all investigative avenues. Those words are carefully chosen. They are meant to reassure, to calm, to keep the possibility of a miracle alive. But the actions tell a different story. If investigators truly believed the children had simply wandered off, why bring in dogs that are designed to find corpses? It raises an unsettling contradiction. On one hand, the RCMP tell the public not to assume the worst. On the other hand, their newest move suggests they are bracing for exactly that. Perhaps they are no longer searching for 2 children hiding in the woods, but for 2 small bodies hidden somewhere that only the nose of a cadaver dog could uncover. The decision also highlights how extraordinary this step really is. Across all of Canada, there are only 6 to 8 cadaver dogs in active service. None are based in Nova Scotia. The RCMP had to summon 2 teams from across the country, Sergeant Dave Whalen and his dog Kit, along with Inspector Luke Reddy and his dog Narc, both flown in from British Columbia. When law enforcement invests those kinds of resources, it signals seriousness, it signals suspicion, and it signals a shift in tone from optimism to grim reality. Belinda Gray, the children's paternal grandmother, responded with raw honesty. She admitted she wanted to jump up and down when she heard the news. For months, she had been pleading with police to use cadaver dogs, convinced that only these animals could cut through the silence of the investigation. "They're finally doing something that to me should have been done a couple of months ago at least," she said. Her relief was mixed with frustration that such a crucial step has taken 4.5 months to materialize. The question hangs heavy. Why now? Did new evidence emerge, perhaps from the pink blanket seized in early May, or from one of the 800 tips investigators have followed up on? Or is this simply the RCMP acknowledging that the trail has gone cold, that conventional search methods have failed, and that cadaver dogs may be the last remaining tool to uncover the truth? One thing is clear: The use of cadaver dogs transforms the narrative. This is no longer just a search for missing children. It is now a search that openly entertains the possibility of death, a possibility the RCMP had long tried to downplay. When police speak, every word is chosen with care. They understand the weight of language, especially in a case that has captivated the nation. That is why the RCMP's statements around the use of cadaver dogs feel so carefully crafted, and yet so painfully contradictory. Corporal Guillaume Tremblay told reporters, "We don't have any definitive information to support that the children are deceased." On the surface, this is a straightforward reassurance. The words suggest that hope remains, that the search continues with the possibility of rescue. But the reality of deploying cadaver dogs cannot be ignored. These dogs do not search for children hiding in the woods. They do not search for lost footprints in the mud. They search for the smell of death. The public hears one thing but sees another, and that divide is dangerous. When investigators say there is no evidence of death, but simultaneously call in teams from across the country to hunt for remains, what message are they really sending? Perhaps this is a form of damage control. For months, the RCMP have faced mounting criticism, from frustrated families, from communities demanding answers, and from citizens who believe the investigation has been far too slow. The decision to use cadaver dogs may be partly about optics, showing that every possible resource is being deployed no matter how grim. But optics alone cannot explain it. Cadaver dogs are not symbolic. They are practical. They have solved cases. They have unearthed the missing after months, even years. To bring them in suggests a real possibility that investigators believe Lilly and Jack are no longer alive. Otherwise, why expend the limited and valuable resource of two of Canada's few specialized dog teams? The contradiction may also reveal something deeper about how the RCMP view the case. In July, court documents revealed investigators did not believe the disappearance was criminal in nature. At that time, they leaned toward the idea that the children had wandered off, lost in the vast Nova Scotia wilderness. But if that were still the dominant theory, cadaver dogs would add little. After 4 months of exhaustive searches, no clothing, no bones, no remains of any kind have been recovered. To bring in cadaver dogs now suggests a shift in focus, away from survival and toward recovery. And that shift raises another haunting question. What prompted it? Was there a new piece of evidence? A lead buried deep in one of the 8,000 surveillance videos reviewed? A tip that hinted at foul play or concealment? Or did investigators simply reach the point where hope was no longer tenable and only grim possibilities remained? For the family, the message is equally conflicting. On one hand, the grandmother, Belinda Gray, is relieved. She sees the dogs as a long overdue step that could finally yield answers. On the other hand, the very presence of cadaver dogs forces her, and everyone watching, to confront the possibility she has dreaded since May, that her grandchildren may not be found alive. And so, the RCMP stand at a crossroads. Their words urge patience and caution, telling the public not to assume the worst. But their actions whisper something else, something darker. Cadaver dogs are not deployed without reason. Their very presence is an admission that investigators must now seriously consider the most tragic outcome. This contradiction is at the heart of the case. It is what makes today's announcement so unsettling. The RCMP are trying to keep hope alive, while at the same time preparing to follow the scent of death. It is a balancing act that may not hold for much longer. For the families left behind, every announcement from the RCMP carries the weight of a hammer blow. And this one was no different. When the news broke that cadaver dogs were finally being deployed, the children's paternal grandmother, Belinda Gray, did not hide her emotions. Her first instinct was joy, a burst of relief that something she had begged for months, was finally happening. "I wanted to jump up and down," she admitted. For her, This was not just another investigative tool. It was hope. Hope that the silence would end. Hope that 4 months of waiting might finally give way to answers. But her words carried bitterness as well. They're finally doing something that, to me, should have been done a couple of months ago at least. That statement was more than frustration. It was an indictment. An accusation that the RCMP had wasted precious time, and with it, precious opportunities. For Belinda Gray, the deployment of cadaver dogs was both a relief and a reminder of just how much has been lost. Not only her grandchildren, but faith in the system that promised to find them. And she is not alone. Across Nova Scotia, public trust has begun to erode. The community of Lansdowne Station has lived with this mystery for months, watching as search teams combed through the forest, helicopters scanned from above, drones circled overhead, thousands of volunteer hours poured into the ground, and yet, nothing. No clothing, no bones, no trace of 2 small children. People have started to ask the unspoken questions out loud. Were mistakes made in the earliest hours of the search? Was evidence overlooked? Did investigators focus too narrowly on one theory while ignoring others? And why did it take 4.5 months for cadaver dogs to be brought in when families like the Sullivans and the Grays were calling for them from the beginning? For families, every day without answers feels like another betrayal. While police urge patience, while officers remind the public that investigations take time, those words ring hollow to a grandmother who has not seen her grandchildren since May 2nd. For her, patience is no comfort. She does not want promises, she wants results. This emotional strain has been described by many families of the missing as a roller coaster. Hope rises with every new announcement, only to come crashing down when another week passes with no news. Relief at a new development is quickly replaced by suspicion. Is this just another tactic to buy time? Will this effort actually produce results, or is it yet another dead end in a case full of them? The deployment of cadaver dogs highlights that duality perfectly. To some, it is a long-awaited breakthrough, a sign that investigators are finally pulling out all the stops. To others, it is proof that the case has entered its darkest phase, where police are no longer searching for life, but for death. And for the grandmother at the center of it all, the emotions remain tangled. Excitement, anger, fear, resignation. She wants answers, even if the answers shatter her heart. Because for her, the most unbearable outcome is not death itself, but silence. Silence leaves her with nothing. Silence leaves her with endless nights, haunted by questions that will not go away. The cadaver dogs may bring closure, they may bring truth, or they may bring nothing at all. But for Belinda Gray, even the possibility of discovery is worth the risk of heartbreak. When cadaver dogs enter a case, they bring with them a chilling set of possibilities. These animals are not called in casually. They are deployed when investigators suspect that somewhere, somehow, the odor of death may be waiting to be found. And that forces us to ask, what does the RCMP truly believe happened to Lilly and Jack Sullivan? The first scenario is the one investigators leaned on early in the case, that the children simply wandered off into the dense woods surrounding their home. Nova Scotia's forests are vast, tangled, and unforgiving. It is possible that 2 small bodies, hidden beneath foliage or concealed by the elements, could remain undiscovered even after exhaustive searches. In this scenario, cadaver dogs may be able to detect what human eyes and search grids have missed. But there is a second, darker scenario, that someone deliberately concealed the children's remains. Cadaver dogs are uniquely suited to detect odors even underground, beneath water, or in sealed spaces. If foul play occurred, if Lilly and Jack were hidden in a shallow grave, placed in a septic tank, or even discarded in an abandoned building, these dogs may be the only chance to locate them. The RCMP has not openly suggested criminal involvement, but deploying cadaver dogs implicitly keeps that possibility alive. A third scenario is more procedural. Perhaps the RCMP does not have strong evidence of death at all. Perhaps they are simply running out of leads. After more than 800 tips and 8,000 videos reviewed, the case remains stalled. In such circumstances, investigators may turn to cadaver dogs, not because they are convinced of death, but because they cannot afford not to. Every avenue must be closed, every possibility tested. To omit cadaver dogs would be to leave a critical gap in the investigation. But to the public, these explanations are cold comfort. The fact remains that cadaver dogs are associated with recovery, not rescue. They are tools of closure, not salvation. And the longer this case drags on, the more likely it seems that closure, rather than rescue, is what the RCMP is preparing for. It is also worth noting the lengths to which police have gone to secure these resources. With only 6 to 8 cadaver dogs in all of Canada, the RCMP had to fly in 2 teams from British Columbia. This is not a decision made lightly. It is expensive, logistically complicated, and symbolically heavy. To do so in a case they still describe as not criminal in nature raises its own contradiction. Why commit such extraordinary resources if investigators truly believe Lilly and Jack are simply lost children who wandered away? Each scenario, tragic accident, deliberate concealment, or procedural thoroughness, carries its own weight. But all of them point to one central reality. The RCMP is no longer operating under the assumption that Lilly and Jack will be found alive. The language may remain cautious, but the strategy speaks volumes. For those watching, the implication is unavoidable. Cadaver dogs are not a gesture of hope. They are a preparation for grief. Whether the RCMP admits it publicly or not, they are searching not just for 2 missing children, but for the truth of what happened to them. A truth that may already be buried in the forests and fields of Nova Scotia. One of the most striking details about this announcement is not just that cadaver dogs are coming, but that the RCMP refused to say where or when they will be used. Corporal Tremblay told reporters bluntly that searches are planned, but declined to share specifics, citing safety concerns, and that silence has left the public guessing. So where might these highly trained dogs be heading? The most obvious answer is the woods around Gairloch Road, the same dense forest where the children were first reported missing. It was there, in the early days, that searchers found a pink blanket and children's boot prints. Those items have lingered in public memory, unresolved and unexplained. Could cadaver dogs be returning to that area, searching for a trace that all previous efforts overlooked? Another possibility is water. Streams, ponds, and wetlands dot the countryside of Pictou County. Standard search methods struggle in such environments, but cadaver dogs can detect scents even below the surface. If investigators believe Lilly and Jack may have drowned or been placed in water, dogs could be deployed near those sites. There is also the possibility of more unsettling locations. Staff Sergeant Pike reminded the public that cadaver dogs are capable of detecting odors underground, even in difficult environments like septic fields or landfills. Those words were not given lightly. They hint at the possibility that RCMP may be considering areas far more grim than the open woods, places where human remains could have been deliberately hidden. But why the secrecy? Why not share the exact areas to be searched, to reassure the public that every possibility is being covered? The RCMP insist it is about safety. Yet in cases like this, safety often means something else, protecting the integrity of the investigation. If the RCMP suspect foul play, announcing search sites could tip off someone they may still be watching. If they have a confidential lead pointing to a specific location, broadcasting it publicly could compromise their ability to follow through quietly. This silence, however, only fuels speculation. Families want to know why cadaver dogs were not used sooner, and now they want to know exactly where these dogs will go. The longer police hold back those details, the more frustration builds. To the public, secrecy looks like hesitation. To investigators, it is strategy. But in the space between those two perspectives, suspicion thrives, and the pressure is real. These are not endless resources. With only a handful of cadaver dogs in Canada, each deployment matters. Each hour of their time has to be chosen carefully. That the RCMP will not reveal their plan suggests they already have specific targets in mind. Locations informed by tips, evidence, or leads the public has not been told about. Will it be the woods again, the waterways, or somewhere unexpected? A landfill, a private property, a hidden place no one had considered before. Wherever it is, the RCMP's silence speaks volumes. They are not randomly sweeping ground. They are making calculated moves, and they do not want anyone to know until the search is underway. For families like the Greys, that secrecy is both infuriating and terrifying. It means answers may be coming. But it also means the RCMP already suspect where to look. And if cadaver dogs are heading there, the odds are overwhelming that what they expect to find is not life, but death. Every step in this investigation has been public, dissected in headlines and analyzed by communities across Canada. But none has cast a darker shadow than this one. The deployment of cadaver dogs does more than change the tactics of the search. It changes the psychology of the case. For months, the story of Lilly and Jack Sullivan has been framed as a mystery with an open ending. They could still be alive. They could still be hiding. They could still be found. Each press conference carried that thin thread of optimism, and each delay left room for hope to cling to. But cadaver dogs change that narrative. They are not animals of rescue. They are animals of recovery, and their arrival forces everyone to confront what they have tried to avoid. That the RCMP may now be preparing to find not 2 missing children, but 2 small bodies. To the public, this feels like a silent admission, one that the RCMP cannot say out loud. Officials can insist there is no definitive evidence of death. They can remind reporters that all investigative avenues must be explored. But the symbolism of cadaver dogs cannot be softened. Their presence alone speaks louder than words. This shift in perception is powerful. It creates fear, anger, and suspicion. Families wonder why this step took so long. Supporters question whether earlier mistakes cost investigators the chance to save the children. Critics point to the contradiction in the RCMP's words and actions, and ordinary citizens feel their hope collapsing under the weight of grim reality. In communities like Lansdowne Station and New Glasgow, where neighbors watched helicopters sweep overhead and volunteers comb the woods, the change is palpable. Conversations that once ended with, "Maybe they'll come home," now stumble into silence. People do not want to say the words, but they are thinking them. If cadaver dogs are here, maybe the story is already over. There is also a more subtle impact, the sense that the RCMP may be preparing the community for grief. Law enforcement agencies know the importance of managing expectations. By framing cadaver dogs as just another investigative avenue, they soften the blow. But behind that careful language, the message is clear. Hope may not be enough. For the grandmother, the contradiction is agonizing. She begged for this step, but now that it has come, she must face the possibility that the answers she longed for may be unbearable. For the public, it is no different. Closure may finally be within reach, but closure often comes at the cost of heartbreak. This is why the deployment of cadaver dogs is not just a tactical shift. It is a psychological turning point. It signals to everyone watching, family, friends, community, and country, that this case is no longer only about searching for the living. It is about preparing to uncover the truth, no matter how devastating it may be. And so, the nation waits, not with the same nervous hope as before, but with a gnawing dread that the RCMP may already know what they cannot yet say. The dogs will go where humans cannot. They will follow the faintest trace of death. And if they find what investigators fear, Nova Scotia may soon be forced to face its darkest outcome. The decision has been made. Cadaver dogs are coming to Nova Scotia. For the RCMP, this is just another investigative avenue. For the families, it is the step they begged for. For the public, it is the moment the tone of the entire investigation shifted. Because cadaver dogs are not symbols of rescue. They are harbingers of truth. Truth that may lie hidden beneath the soil, beneath the water, or buried in silence. Their presence forces us all to confront the question the RCMP avoids. Are Lilly and Jack Sullivan still alive, or have investigators already braced themselves for the worst? The contradiction remains haunting. Officers insist they have no definitive information of death. And yet, they fly in rare, highly trained dogs from across the country, dogs whose only job is to locate the scent of human remains. Actions speak louder than words, and these actions suggest the RCMP are no longer clinging to hope alone. The community waits, restless, suspicious, afraid. The family waits, torn between desperate hope and unbearable dread. And a nation waits, asking whether this final resource will finally uncover the truth, or whether it will deepen the mystery that has already consumed 4 long months. If the dogs find something, the answers may bring closure. But if they do not, the silence will stretch on, darker and heavier than before. So tonight, the question is not only what happened to Lilly and Jack. The question is whether the RCMP already knows more than they are willing to admit, and whether these dogs will confirm what investigators have quietly suspected all along. What do you think? Are cadaver dogs the sign of a breakthrough, or the silent admission that tragedy has already struck? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget, subscribe to True Child Cases for ongoing updates, deep analysis, and untold stories behind Canada's most haunting mysteries.